The UFC's landmark inaugural event under its new Paramount Plus banner, UFC 324, continues to take shape as a must-see card, with two more compelling matchups added to the January 24th lineup at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The promotion has officially booked a pivotal featherweight clash between the returning Arnold Allen and the red-hot John Silva, while a high-stakes women's flyweight bout between former champions Alexa Grasso and former two-time strawweight queen Rose Namajunas is also set, promising a night of significant divisional consequences. In the featherweight division, Arnold Allen steps back into the octagon after a lengthy 18-month absence, facing a perilous challenge in the form of surging Brazilian finisher John Silva. For Allen, this fight represents a critical juncture in his career. The sixth-ranked contender is looking to build on the momentum from his unanimous decision win over Gaethje in July 2024, a victory that snapped a two-fight skid against elite competition in Movsar Evloev and Max Holloway. Prior to those losses, Allen was on a sensational 12-fight win streak that had positioned him on the cusp of title contention. Now, he returns to the spotlight on the promotion's biggest stage of the new year, but he faces a notoriously dangerous and active opponent in Silva, who has built a reputation for relentless pressure, formidable cardio, and a knack for securing finishes by knockout, submission, or doctor stoppage. This is a classic high-risk, high-reward matchup for Allen. A win over a destructive force like Silva instantly reestablishes him as a top player at 145 pounds, while a loss could see him surpassed by the division's new wave of talent. On the women's side, a fascinating striker versus grappler dynamic is at play as former flyweight champion Alexa Grasso meets former two-time strawweight queen Rose Namajunas. This bout carries immense weight for the future of the 125-pound division. For Namajunas, the fight is an opportunity to cement her status as a legitimate title threat in her new weight class. Since moving up from a strawweight, Thug Rose has found solid footing, securing 3 victories, including a recent decision over Miranda Maverick. A win over a former champion of the division like Grasso would be the most significant achievement of her flyweight run and would undoubtedly put her in the conversation for a title shot. For Grasso, the path is equally clear. After losing her title and the subsequent rematch to Valentina Shevchenko, she is in dire need of a signature victory to climb back into the championship picture. Defeating a big-name, accomplished fighter like Namajunas would provide exactly that, re-establishing her as a central figure in the flyweight landscape and setting the stage for another potential run at the gold.
The UFC's final pay-per-view event before its historic transition to Paramount Plus, UFC 323 on December 6, 2025, features a pivotal flyweight clash that serves as a classic crossroads fight between a revered former champion and a hungry, rising phenom. On the main card, two-time title holder Brandon Moreno steps into the octagon against the surging Japanese prospect Tatsuro Taira in a 3-round bout that carries immense implications for the future of the 125-pound division, with the winner likely catapulting directly into a championship opportunity. The matchup presents a fascinating stylistic and narrative dichotomy. Brandon Moreno, the seasoned veteran and beloved figure from Mexico, is on a mission to reclaim the throne he once held. After a pair of setbacks against champion Alexander Pantoja and a split decision loss to Brandon Royval, Moreno has meticulously rebuilt his momentum with consecutive unanimous decision wins over tough contenders Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg. For Moreno, this fight represents the final hurdle on his path back to a title shot, a chance to prove that his experience and well-rounded game can still overcome the division's new wave of talent. Standing across from him is Tatsuro Taira, a 25-year-old prodigy whose composure and elite grappling acumen have made him one of the most feared prospects in the sport. Despite a narrow split decision loss to Royval in 2024, Taira rebounded emphatically with a dominant submission victory, showcasing the relentless ground game that has defined his ascent. The betting lines, which initially opened with Taira as a slight favorite, reflect the market's belief in his upward trajectory and potential to dethrone a legend. Statistically, the fight is a compelling contrast. Moreno holds a significant advantage in striking volume, landing nearly 4 significant strikes per minute compared to Taira's more measured output. However, Tyra compensates with a suffocating grappling offense, averaging approximately 1 takedown per round, which will test Moreno's 64% takedown defense. The outcome likely hinges on whether Moreno can keep the fight standing and utilize his sharp boxing, or if Tyra can implement his game plan and drag the former champion into deep waters on the mat. With the current champion, Alexander Pantoja, defending his belt in the co-main event, the victor of Moreno versus Tyra will have a compelling case for the next title shot, setting the stage for a fresh challenger to emerge in the ever-competitive flyweight landscape.
In the often serious world of UFC contender politics, a refreshingly self-deprecating and humorous potential matchup has emerged between 2 lightweight veterans. The call-out originated from Dan Hooker, who, following his submission loss to Arman Tsarukyan at UFC Qatar, amusingly suggested a fight with Renato Moicano on the grounds that they are both shit. This unconventional pitch did not go unnoticed by Moicano, who responded in kind with a mix of agreement and competitive fire during an appearance on the Ariel Helwani show. "That was a funny call-out," Moicano acknowledged, appreciating the humor in Hooker's approach. "That is something I would do if I was in his place." He concurred with the underlying premise that neither is currently at the peak of the division, but was quick to draw a qualitative distinction. "I think he doesn't deserve to be in the top 5, in the top 6. And he's right, I fucking suck, he sucks, but the only thing that he's missing is that he's way, way worse than me." Moicano then proceeded to playfully dismantle Hooker's skill set, citing a lack of ground game, knockout power, and wrestling as key deficiencies. Despite the fan-friendly and entertaining nature of the proposed bout, Moicano expressed skepticism that the UFC would actually book it, pointing to the harsh realities of the fight business. Unfortunately for both of us, the UFC is not going to do this matchup. I think the fans would love to watch me and Dan Hooker fight, but I don't think UFC is making that fight. Because let's be honest, we're both old, and they probably want to feed us to young contenders, prospects to get in the rankings. He accurately identified their current roles in the ecosystem of the 155-pound division, established names who serve as gatekeepers and measuring sticks for rising talent. Instead, Moicano predicted a different path for the Hangman, correctly forecasting that the promotion would book the surging Benoit Saint-Denis against Hooker, using the veteran as a litmus test for the French contender's top 10 credentials.
The UFC's recent blockbuster fight announcements for early 2026 have been met with significant criticism from prominent voices within the MMA community, with journalist Ariel Helwani leading the charge against what he perceives as a fundamental breakdown in merit-based matchmaking. The central point of contention is the booking of an interim lightweight title fight between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett as the UFC 324 headliner, a decision that has left the division's clear #1 contender, Arman Tsarukyan, in a state of bewildering limbo. Helwani did not mince words in his analysis, branding the Gaethje vs. Pimblett bout a bogus fight for the simple reason that it deliberately bypasses the most deserving athlete. He pointedly noted, "An interim title fight that does not feature a #1 contender, because the #1 contender at 155 pounds is a guy named Arman Tsarukyan." Tsarukyan, fresh off a dominant submission win over Dan Hooker, has publicly stated his readiness to fight in January, making his exclusion all the more confusing. The situation is exacerbated by UFC CEO Dana White's confirmation that the winner of the interim bout will unify the title with champion Ilia Topuria later in the year, effectively slamming the door on Tsarukyan's title hopes for the foreseeable future. A frustrated Helwani questioned the logic, asking, "What happens to Arman? Arman's gonna have to fight who? What's going on? What does Arman Tsarukyan have to offer to get a shot at the belt now?" This sentiment was echoed by fellow analyst Luke Thomas, who argued that the promotion strategy has shifted away from determining the best fighters in favor of pure profit maximization. They're just extracting wealth out of the bout rather than matchmaking for a real clear sense of who's the best, Thomas stated, framing the decision as one driven by the box office appeal of Pimblett rather than his competitive resume. Helwani expanded his critique beyond the lightweight division in a social media post, pointing to a pattern of questionable bookings. He listed the controversial featherweight title rematch between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes, despite the availability of more deserving contenders like Movsar Evloev and Lerone Murphy, and the presumed welterweight title fight between Islam Makhachev and Kamaru Usman, which overlooks a queue of dangerous active contenders like Shavkat Rakhmonov, Mikael Morales, Carlos Prates, and Ian Machado Gary. For Helwani and many observers, the UFC is at a crossroads, prioritizing marketable super fights and lucrative rematches at the expense of its own rankings and the competitive integrity that has long been the sport's foundation, leaving its most dedicated and successful contenders in a state of professional purgatory.
The UFC's new era matchmaking philosophy, unveiled with its inaugural 2026 Paramount Plus schedule, has created a glaring and deeply frustrating predicament for its top lightweight contender, Arman Tsarukyan, sparking criticism from within the sports community. Despite definitively cementing his status as the #1 contender with a dominant second-round submission of Dan Hooker at UFC Qatar, Tsarukyan finds himself shockingly sidelined from the championship picture. With undisputed champion Ilia Topuria taking a personal hiatus, the UFC opted to create an interim title, but stunningly bypassed Tsarukyan, instead booking a headline bout. This decision has not gone unnoticed, with social media personality Nina Marie Daniele taking a veiled jab at the UFC's matchmakers in a comment on one of Tsarukyan's posts. After Tsarukyan shared a video of a light dinner, Daniele quipped, "Arman ate the matchmakers," a sentiment that perfectly captures the widespread belief that the most deserving fighter has been unfairly consumed by a system now prioritizing marketability. Tsarukyan's own public reaction was one of pure bewilderment. He simply posted on X, "Make it make sense," a plea that resonates with fans and analysts who see no sporting logic in the move. The situation is further exacerbated by UFC CEO Dana White's confirmation the winner will face Topuria in a unification bout later in 2026, effectively locking Tsarukyan out of a title shot until 2027 at the earliest, and confirming that, for now, the path to a UFC championship is paved by popularity as much as it is by victory.
The dawn of the UFC's new $7.7 billion era with Paramount Plus has been marked not by universal celebration, but by a wave of frustration and disillusionment from several of the promotion's top contenders, who feel that merit has been decisively trumped by marketability in the company's inaugural 2026 matchmaking. UFC CEO Dana White's major fight announcements, delivered during the high-profile platform of an NFL halftime show, have revealed a clear strategic pivot, leaving elite fighters like Lerone Murphy and Arman Tsarukyan on the outside looking in, and prompting accusations that the sport's competitive integrity is being compromised. The most poignant reaction came from undefeated featherweight Lerone Murphy, who saw a promised title shot vanish with the announcement that champion Alexander Volkanovski would instead run back an immediate rematch with Diego Lopes at UFC 325 in Sydney. This decision was a particularly bitter pill for Murphy to swallow, as Volkanovski himself had publicly labeled a fight with him a no-brainer following Murphy's spectacular knockout of Aaron Pico. Taking to social media, Murphy expressed his profound disappointment, writing, "Missing the opportunity to fight one of featherweight's GOATs is what hurts me the most." His follow-up comment cut to the heart of the issue for many purists. "It's not about who's the best anymore, it's about who's most popular."
This sentiment frames the Lopes rematch not as a sporting necessity, given Volkanovski's clear decision victory in their first fight, but as a business decision, favoring a known action fighter over a less established, albeit more deserving, contender. This pattern was equally stark in the lightweight division, where the creation of an interim title for UFC 324 has sparked even greater controversy. Despite Tsarukyan cementing his status as the undeniable #1 contender with a dominant win over Dan Hooker and declaring his readiness for January, the interim championship bout was awarded to Justin Gaethje and the charismatic but less accomplished Paddy Pimblett. This booking confirms that Tsarukyan's championship aspirations are being put on hold indefinitely, not for a more deserving fighter, but for a more commercially appealing one. The message to the roster is clear. A highlight reel and a loud personality can now fast-track a fighter past an entire division's worth of proven elite competition. Together, these announcements for the first two blockbuster events of 2026 have created a palpable sense of grievance within the sport's upper echelons. The UFC is unequivocally leveraging its new broadcast deal to launch with the most marketable fights possible, but in doing so, it has created a scenario where being the best is no longer the primary prerequisite for a title shot. For fighters like Murphy and Tsarukyan, who have dedicated their lives to climbing the competitive ladder, this new reality is a devastating professional setback and a sign that the rules of the game have fundamentally changed.
The UFC's announcement of an immediate featherweight title rematch between champion Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes for the UFC 325 headliner in Sydney has ignited a firestorm of criticism from within the fighter ranks, prompting a defiant and dismissive response from the Brazilian challenger himself. The booking made by UFC CEO Dana White during his Thanksgiving fight announcements was met with immediate backlash from contenders who felt the opportunity bypassed more deserving athletes, leading to a public debate over meritocracy versus marketability in the sport. The most vocal critics were undefeated contender Lerone Murphy and former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling. Murphy, whose spectacular knockout victory had previously earned him a public endorsement from Volkanovski himself, expressed his profound disappointment on social media, stating, "Missing the opportunity to fight one of featherweight's GOATs is what hurts me the most." He followed with a pointed critique of the UFC's modern matchmaking philosophy, adding, "It's not about who's the best anymore, it's about who's most popular." Sterling echoed this sentiment, explicitly arguing that either Murphy or the undefeated Movsar Evloev should have received the shot. Movsar got passed over by Lopes once and he gets another opportunity for gold, Sterling wrote, concluding with, "Fair play to Lopes, but you can see why guys start to lose love for the game. Cold world." In the face of this criticism, Diego Lopes responded not with justification, but with sheer bravado. Posting a picture of himself with a wide, unbothered grin, he captioned the image, "My face when I saw everyone crying." Then he offered a piece of blunt advice to his peers. "Sitting around, he won't give you a title fight. Get to work and stop whining on social media." This response positions Lopes as a fighter who understands the entertainment-driven nature of the business and is unapologetic about seizing the opportunity presented to him, regardless of the conventional rankings. Interestingly, even the champion, Alexander Volkanovski, acknowledged the validity of the criticism, admitting that Murphy and Evloev were more deserving from a pure sporting perspective. However, he also conceded to the UFC's logic, noting, "UFC really wanted Lopes, but at least everyone knows they're in for a treat. With Movsar and Lerone, they're more deserving, but are they going to bring the fight like Lopes would?" This highlights the central conflict. The UFC has prioritized the guarantee of a thrilling, action-packed fight that Lopes consistently delivers over what many see as the more righteous, merit-based path for the title. The situation has laid bare a growing tension in the sport where exciting performances and fan engagement are increasingly valued as highly, if not more than, a pristine winning streak.
The roadmap for the UFC middleweight division has been officially laid out by its fearsome and undefeated king, Khamzat Chimaev, who has broken his silence to name Nassourdine Imavov as the first challenger for his throne. Taking to social media, Boers issued a characteristically confident and pointed call-out, signaling his intention to face the French contender in 2026. "See you after Ramadan, Imavov. You have time, work on your wrestling, bratishka," Chimaev posted, a message that simultaneously confirms the matchup and delivers a stinging critique of what he perceives as Imavov's primary weakness. This announcement brings clarity to the 185-pound title picture while also revealing a significant delay, as the champion's return is now contingent on both a minor foot operation and the observance of the holy month of Ramadan, which runs from late February through March 19, 2026. This timeline pushes his first title defense to April 2026 at the earliest, placing the division in a prolonged state of anticipation. The challenger, Nassourdine Imavov, has unequivocally earned this opportunity through a spectacular and calculated run in 2025. He first announced himself as a top-tier threat with one of the most shocking knockouts of the year, flattening the legendary former champion Israel Adesanya in just 30 seconds of the second round in Saudi Arabia. He then followed this career-defining win with a masterful performance in front of his home crowd in Paris, outclassing the previously unbeaten Caio Berralho over 5 rounds in a dominant unanimous decision victory. This 5-fight winning streak, capped with wins over a legend and an elite contender, left no doubt that Imavov was the most deserving candidate for a shot at the belt, a claim he loudly made in his post-fight interview in Paris by pointing directly at the champion's invisible belt and declaring, "I am next." He now faces a champion in Khamzat Chimaev, whose dominance has been historically absolute. Chimaev captured the title by utterly neutralizing the formidable Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319, taking him down within the first 8 seconds and controlling him on the mat for nearly the entire 25-minute fight. This showcased the suffocating wrestling and top pressure that has become his trademark, the very same skill he so openly taunts Imavov to improve. With a perfect 15-0 record, a staggering 100% takedown defense rate, and a history of absorbing almost no damage in his fights, Khamzat Chimaev represents a stylistic nightmare for nearly anyone in the division. The looming championship clash is thus a classic striker versus grappler dilemma, pitting Imavov's sharp technical striking and footwork against Chimaev's otherworldly wrestling and relentless pressure. For now, both men enter a waiting game, with Imavov having several months to, as the champion suggested, work on your wrestling before their scheduled collision in the spring of 2026.